Union of the Unknowns, a podcast dedicated to the exploration of modern culture, presents a weekly digest of current events that may have slipped past your radar. This is not your mama's news.
Hello there, good morning, good evening, and good whatever, whenever, and wherever you are. Welcome to Not Your Mama's News, and mamas, please block your ears. This is not the place for you. I am Stella Q, and welcome everybody for being here with your ears on. And welcome to my good friend Ashley. Think, Change, Repeat. How you going?
Hello there. I am doing very well. Happy to be here with you. And how are you today, Stella?
Oh, I'm very good. I think my eyes just got crossed. What happened? Did you just change us?
I moved you to the host seat, if there is such a thing.
Oh, the throne. Okay, thank you very much.
The throne. Yes, I thought the way that I added you into the studio, it should have done that, I think. But anyway, so that's what that was.
It'll get it right one day. I feel much more powerful now being on the left. Thank you. And I must compliment you very highly on your choice of headwear, the Australia cap, for those who are only listening.
Yes, it is an homage to, I don't know if you know this, but I have a friend in Australia. And this, yeah, I know. And this is an homage to her. Yeah.
I think I might know that chick.
You might be friends.
There you go. Well, it's good to see it being sported on such a lovely head.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
They're in the north.
You know, and it's a Saturday night. So I felt like we're a little more casual. You know, it's Saturday, it's the weekend. Well, it's Sunday morning for you, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, look, Saturday night's all right for fighting, but it's even better for being casual.
Exactly.
Let's be cash, man.
Let's be cash. I love it.
Okay. Cash sounds good. All right. I suppose we should get round to reporting on some newsy type things because that's kind of the point of the show, really. All right. Now, I believe that you have something to do with your stomping ground there, your hometown. Do tell. Which is North Carolina, of course.
It is. And it is quite an interesting story. And I wish that I had this quote highlighted. Here we go. North Carolina was first in flight. We're also the future of flight. I thought that was quite an interesting quote, but the story that I'm bringing to you is that the company Jet Zero is to bring thousands of jobs to Greensboro, North Carolina, with a new facility as incentives approved. So there's going to probably be a lot of unanswered questions as far as a deep dive perspective goes. Like, what are the incentives? Normally, the incentives come at the expense of the taxpayer. And it is usually that they're given like a lot of subsidies, they're given land, they're giving tax breaks, things like that. But it's just an interesting, the entire thing is interesting because, so this is the location of Greensboro is central North Carolina, and this article says that they are bringing 14,500 jobs to the area, which sounds, you know what, I would love to see and check back when all is said and done to see if this is actually going to pan out, because that seems like a lot of jobs for one specific place.
That is a heck of a lot of jobs, isn't it? What does Jet Zero actually do?
Well, Stella, I'm glad you asked. And actually, I'm going to do a screen share because I want to show you what they do. And this is going to be an interesting, I was excited to bring this because I wanted to show you this company.
It does sound interesting, and I've got my, oh, okay, that looks interesting.
Yes. Okay. So if you're just listening, I'm doing a screen share of the Jet Zero website, which is just jetzero.aero, AERO. So you can take a look on your own time if you're interested. But essentially, what they're saying that they're doing is combining the plane with the wings. So this is supposed to be a much more aerodynamic shape of a plane. And the thing is that there's been a little bit of back and forth out there because this is still kind of in the innovation stage. I mean, I guess it's a little bit further along than simply innovation because they approved the plant. And then the plan for the manufacturing of the plant is going to or building the manufacturing facility is starting in the first part of 2026. And then production should be up and going by what year do you think? 2030.
30.
2030.
Fits so nicely into 2030.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. And so this, obviously, I find the name Jet Zero alarming. Now, from what I have been digging into, it does not say, and that's not to say that it doesn't exist. Like I said, I think this is worth doing a lot more digging on, but it does not say that it's using lithium or anything like that. What is supposed to be the case with these planes is that they are helping reduce fuel usage per plane because of the more aerodynamic shape. And of course, that's going to help with, the carbon footprint and all that kind of stuff. And it's supposed to be a nicer flying experience. File that under I'll believe it when I see it, because I don't think that exists anymore. But essentially, they have not completely redesigned, but they've redesigned the body of the plane so that the wings are a lot more integrated into the actual plane. And if you're interested in this stuff, I highly recommend going to check out the website, because you're going to be able to have the visual of this new sort of sleeker design for an airplane. And the other thing that's saying is that once this plant is fully operational, that they're going to be able to produce 20 planes a month. Again, I'm skeptical about that. That's a pretty high number of
That is
producing
huge.
airplanes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But then 14,500 people. I mean, it depends on how many hangars and production sort of hangars they've got. I suppose it's possible.
So true. So true. So let me give you a little bit more about.
I mean, there's a lot of out of work immigrants over there at the moment, isn't there? So they could, they've plenty of hands. Can I please get you to put that link into the chat here, because I'm finding that when I've put it in to have a look myself into my browser, as is the case with many websites, it seems lately, I can't get on. This site can't be reached, it says.
You know what? That's a really good point. So I'm going to drop it in the private, and then I will also drop it on our
into YouTube, the tube of use. Use tube.
So there we go for that. And then let me get to our comments. I'm posting it there.
Oh, okay. Well, that's odd. So that works. What did I do wrong? Anyway, thank you. I didn't put the www in. Yeah, I thought we were way past that. You still got to put the w in.
No worries at all. So, let's see. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the screen share. I don't know if there's any. Oh, this. Okay. So I'm scrolling down because I wanted to show Stella sort of this shows the wind or the air pattern and how it's going to be traveling over the plane. So that's supposedly going to help with, they're making very big promises. So it's saying that the low drag, lightweight, all wing Z4 uses up to 50% less fuel than today's commercial jets. So I find it very interesting. And the fact that they're still saying that they're using fuel. So this is not saying it's like a smart plane or an E-plane or something like that. So I am hopeful, while they're still saying that they're going to be using fuel, just using less. However, I think that we still need to see when the rubber meets the road. Go ahead.
When the rubber meets the road or the air. Look, it's a very interesting looking plane. The first thing that I'm noticing is, if we could just go back to, just the first thing I'm noticing is the very thinness or thinidity of the wings, because as most people know, that is generally where the fuel gets carried. So obviously there's 50% less fuel. So I guess that means it could be 50% less wing diameter or width, height, whatever the term is. Very interesting. Okay, so there's that. The tail is pretty much non-existent. It's like a docked dog. They've docked the tail off the planes
Right.
and just made it a flat, sort of more like a hydro type vehicle. What are they called? Those hydrofoily type thing. Oh, I'm probably talking out my butt. But anyway, it's a completely different design there, so I could see the aerodynamics. But they're always going to have fuel. That's the thing, because excuse me, takeoff and takeoff particularly requires a hell of a lot more power than a battery or several batteries would ever be able to provide, and stay in the air for a reasonable amount of time. But very interesting, very innovative, and also the less fuel will contribute, possibly, I would think, to less contrails and chemtrails, or
Yes.
however you want to call them.
Yes.
Let's not get into that.
We won't get into the whole thing, but I do. The point has to be made that this is if this is legit, this is possibly a really good, like the first tech that I would be like, this could be really good. So what's the downside? I don't know yet, but I'm going to be watching, and I know you're going to be watching as well. But yeah, from the tail perspective, like what you were saying and what Dream Reel is pointing out in the chat, the tail actually looks like what you would have on the back of a race car.
Yeah.
I just had the name of that, a spoiler. It looks like a spoiler on the back of a car. And
Right.
so it is sort of a very interesting, and everything is, well, actually it looks like the wing kind of acts as the spoiler. So
It looks,
you're gonna
what
have
it
to,
looks like? A manta ray. That's what they've sort of
yeah.
modeled it on, really, when you look from
Yeah.
the top down.
Yeah. So people, I highly recommend you go check this out, because I think it's very, very interesting from so many different perspectives. Not only the promises that they're making, but the amount of people and employees that that they're saying that they're going to be employing in order to make this happen. So then I want to get to a couple other interesting things from the article. So as I said before, it's 14,500 quote high wage jobs. Now that's a promise from the North Carolina Democratic Governor Josh Stein, and the average salary is supposedly going to be $89,000 a year. They're saying that they're going to change lives, or going to increase the quality of life and put people to work. Now, we know that you cannot trust politicians, and oftentimes you cannot trust giant companies that have huge subsidies given to them on the promises that they make. And I have anecdotal experience, but we have real life experience over and over and over. So I'm not going to be holding my breath for that. But it says nearly 5 billion in investment in the ground and 250 billion in economic impact. Now, I also find this very interesting, because I have been saying for a very long time that North Carolina is on the radar of the technocrats. Bill Gates owns land in this community, or in our state, and also you have what is known as the Research Triangle, which is around the Raleigh, Durham, and Cary area. So there's a lot of like biotech and pharmaceutical and universities all in that area. So that's going to be about, maybe say, 2 hours from this spot in Greensboro.
Mhm.
And there's a ton of other universities around the area where they're directly at. And even one of the schools is North Carolina A&T, and that was a place that Joe Biden had made a visit, and they were working on robot dogs. Horrifying. So I think they're going to find plenty of plenty of technocratic, connections in this area. So let me move on here. Some of the jobs include systems, aerospace engineering, supply chain structure engineers, production support, production direct, finance, HR, IT, customer service, business development. And then the California based company has been conducting a nationwide search for a location to manufacture its fuel efficient aircraft. And company leaders called PTI, which is Piedmont Triad International Airport, the right place for the facility. JetZero has partnered with United, Delta, and Alaska Airlines. The company hopes to have the planes in service by 2030, as I said before. And then it goes on to give a little more information about when they break ground, which I said is the first part of 2026. And of course, the obligatory that they are prioritizing sustainability. And it said it does put North Carolina in the economy of the late 21st century. We have got to get to a carbon reduced economy. This is about transforming flight here in America, he said. They will burn half the amount of fuel that a traditional airplane burns, which is necessary for the industry to get to a carbon zero goal. The Z4 will feature a special all-wing design and seat up to 250 passengers. JetZero's CEO and co-founder Tom O'Leary said North Carolina's K-12 schools and colleges have educated the kind of employees the company needs. So they're basically just saying like there's a high value type of people around because of the amount of education, universes and things like that in the state, whatever. But there's just a lot of really interesting points made in this article from like what could the potential agenda be and the promises that are made, and then a little bit more information about this new style plane, which again it's called the Z4. And the 250 passengers I think is interesting. And I read somewhere else that I believe it's supposed to be able to fly like 5,000 miles.
Wow. Okay. That's very interesting. I'm glad you brought this. It's extremely interesting. I had heard nothing about it. I'm just looking at as well at the team. There's some very, very high profile members there, isn't there? Bob Liebeck.
Yes.
Liebeck. Where do I know that name? Bob Liebeck.
So the team that is assembled for the leadership of JetZero, as Stella was saying, as we were talking about, is very interesting. And honestly, it's worth a deep dive into the entire thing. Yes. So notably, Tom O'Leary is the CEO and co-founder, and supposedly he founded with Mark Page, who is the, I guess,
he's got a very bad face job. Sorry.
Yes. Chief Technological Officer, I think. But Tom O'Leary previously worked at Tesla. So I think that, it's very interesting who the people are working here, and it's worth checking it, doing a little bit of a deep dive on them as well, because I didn't really have time, but I wanted to check out, their World Economic Forum connections and things like that. But I feel pretty sure that all of that's going to be there. I mean, in the article, they said themselves already, sustainability. I mean, they're using the buzzword sustainability, net zero, 2030, all these things. So I just think
all the things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look at we've got Tesla, Delta, Airbus, Rolls-Royce, BMW, General Electric, SpaceX, Honeywell, Boeing, Safran, Icon. Oh my gosh. It's just like everybody who's anyone, Northrop Grumman.
So you've got, I mean, there's definitely the intelligence connections and like DoD. I don't know. I wouldn't even be surprised if it leads back to Peter Thiel.
Yeah, I was just going to say that actually. Yeah. Where is he?
Yep.
He's there somewhere.
So if he's not in there, I guarantee you there's probably one person removed connection there. So, but anyway, so I was excited to bring this to you because I knew that you would be really interested in this from from all kinds of perspectives, but certainly from the possibility, like, could this really be, a fuel reducing plane, and how viable are they for, for transitioning over in the air? It could be very interesting. And the other thing that I feel like I read, it wasn't the article that I had pulled up, but I think that it maybe even said that they were even looking at, and I felt like this is kind of an old hat and something that you have discussed before, but that they may even be looking at reconfiguring the fuel, I guess, to make it even more efficient. I don't know. But so we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, they're working on the fuel all the time. They've changed the fuel several times. In the 1990s, the fuel was changed, but also using all the biofuels now, or the SAF, they call it, SAF. So, yep, there's lots of technological things going on with fuel and all that sort of thing. I mean, the trails that get seen in the sky, No, they're not spraying us. Not unless they're doing like, spraying, like proper spraying, crop dusting or adulticide spraying for like specific programs. Adulticide is for mosquitoes and things like that, not people. Well, that's what they say anyway.
Right.
But no, it's a combination of atmospheric conditions and then the fuel burning at certain temperatures and creating moisture and all that sort of thing. So obviously that's going to be desirable to try to get rid of that for the people who don't want to engineer the planet, geoengineer. It's good to get rid of those things because they do. They become a veil and they sort of block out the sun basically. But some people think that's a great idea, but it's actually not.
Right. Yeah. And so, of course, I'm skeptical. I mean, it sounds really good. Like it actually does sound good. If you can come up with something that's more efficient to use, but still using fuel, and you can come up with a cleaner fuel, then I think it sounds very good. But I have to be very skeptical when you're dealing with a state that's on the technocrat radar for sure. And then all of the companies that you listed, I think we should be concerned about that. And how is this going to connect with like SpaceX or the brain chip was Neuralink, and what is his internet? Starlink, things like that. I don't know. We don't have any obvious connections, but or Palantir. Like what are going to be the technocratic connections to this? I mean, maybe I'm just being cynical.
Well, you're welcome to be cynical. This is not your mama's news. The shape of that plane certainly looks like it could easily have been mistaken in the past because no doubt they've probably got some prototypes and they've been doing test flights and things like that. It certainly does look very triangular. So, I think back to some of the mystery lights that have been seen in the sky. And they're usually sort of, often they're triangular looking. So I do wonder how much of that could have been due to these projects.
Yeah, straight out
And
of
other
Area
Black
51.
projects. Yeah, sure. I mean, we're not going to know about all the other ones, but at least, they're coming out with this. So obviously they have been doing some test flights and things. So there you go. That's very, very interesting. Thanks for bringing that.
Yeah, I was really excited. I knew we were going to have a very interesting discussion and something to be, on our radar going forward as well.
Yeah, Dream Real in YouTube has brought up steering must be controlled by the engines alone. So I guess that's going to be, I don't really know how they would do that, but it doesn't look, hey, let's have another look. I'm just going to have another quick look at that plane. Is it
While
got
you're
flaps?
doing that, I did want to make the point. So that's a good point, Dream Real. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is that not the article I was just looking at, but another article I was reading on this subject. It does talk about how they plan to use AI and automation in manufacturing. So that's another thing that I'm very curious about. As far as you're saying that you're creating 14,500 jobs, and yet you're also going to be using automation and AI. I'm very, very skeptical of that.
Well, somebody's got to lubricate the robots.
Right. Yes, and go up with your little oil can.
Because at this point they can't lubricate themselves, which is probably good. Otherwise they'd be reproducing all over the place.
They wouldn't need us. I know. Yes, so I am curious about that, and I'm also curious about how, because everything has to do with AI these days. So, in what ways are they going to try to integrate AI into the actual product? Food for thought.
It certainly is. That was a very yummy story, and I'm just noticing there doesn't seem to be any flaps on the wings either. So yeah, completely different steering system, quite obviously, with the very turned up tips at the end. So very, very interesting looking design.
Yes, and before we move on, I wanted to bring up this comment from Dream Real. If you wanted to read that, I think that's interesting.
Dream Real says their test flights for approval were with a 12.5% scale model. Okay, could be drone size. Yeah. Okay, interesting. I wonder if they've got little mini ones for war and stuff, and these are just the scaled down. We can make money out of people as well, as well as war.
Yeah, I mean,
Who knows?
I 100% think that is a valid question, because we know that like Boeing, they do both, right? They're machines of destruction, but they also make crappy airplanes. So
which are now also machines of destruction because, you look at
yes.
all the things that have been happening with Boeing lately. It's like,
Yeah.
why are they doing, why are they
Yep.
trying to bring Boeing down sort of thing? It's kind
Yep.
of suspicious, really.
It is suspicious. And now I think that we have maybe not an answer, and maybe nothing, but maybe something like this is a piece of the puzzle. If they are preparing to sunset the traditional operations with Boeing for whatever reason, if it's like the situation of, for example, the towers on 9/11, that they were not capable to be technologically plugged in, maybe that's the same thing with some of these planes, that they're going to be sunsetting, and that it would not be economically feasible for Boeing to spend 15 billion or whatever it is on new manufacturing. Like I don't know, but I just think it's worth looking out for.
Definitely is. And yeah, it could be, well, could be a number of things, but just with the latest thing with the Boeing, that I was just watching a hearing, I think it was a hearing of a Boeing whistleblower, just bringing some facts to the table about how, he's been, like many people have come forward saying the same thing. They bring safety concerns. That's their job. And they bring the concerns, and then they get threatened, or they just get quietly moved to another position, things like that, or, lose their jobs, etc. So the latest one that I was watching was a dude from Boeing. So yeah, they're in deep poo, really, but that's probably part of the playbook, I would imagine.
100%. 100%. And, we talk about this stuff all the time. Like, why is this in the news? Why are we being allowed to see it? So it was very, when you had the Boeing whistleblowers, and there was like 2 separate, if I recall correctly, that ended up dying under suspicious circumstances right when they were supposed to testify and things like that. I'm not saying that that didn't happen to them. I just always wonder, how did this come about, or why did this come about that we're actually hearing about it in a mainstream capacity? And if that's the case, what is up with all of the bad PR that Boeing is getting lately? And with people knowing like, oh, well, the window just fell out mid-flight in Alaska or whatever. Like, what?
Oh, the door fell off. Never mind.
Oh, don't mind that old thing.
Yeah. Need replacing anyway. Yeah, no, it's just it's pretty crazy. I mean, look at the airline industry. It's gone from, like, Qantas, for example. They went from a perfect flying record. Like, I think there was no Qantas wrecks or anything, and then all of a sudden it just started going downhill, didn't it? Sort of just, yeah. I think that was when they sort of started moving their manufacturing and maintenance and things more kind of offshore-ish. It seemed to coincide with around about then, but the front fell off. Yeah, yeah. Hate it when that happens. But interesting to watch where it's all going. I mean, we all know that technological, the technocrats are certainly in control. I mean, that we've been shown that it's in our face. Trump stood them up like a firing line, and showed us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got all
Now,
these
I
ducks
was
in a
going to
row.
say, as far as the front of the airplane or even the window falling out, I think we should just use what Stella recommends, which is gaffer tape, right?
Oh yeah, gaffer tape works every time. Yep.
So I know that they have all the money in the world, but maybe we just need to send them a couple boxes of tape.
It comes in silver, so
Perfect.
Yeah.
It won't
Beautiful.
even stand out.
Thank you, Nashua. All right. Well, great story. Thank you for that.
Yeah, for sure. We'll have to keep this on our radar.
Yes, and wonder we will. WWW. I thought I'd do a little recap on the death cap mushroom story because I was a little bit rushed last time with my my investigation isms, and now I've got pages and pages and pages of really messy notes, and I can't find anything. So I'm going to have to rely on you asking me some questions here, I think. But it's an interesting kind of story. I don't know why it won't go away.
It is interesting, and I do, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I do have my first question, and that is there a fungus among us?
There certainly is.
Made you laugh.
You did. Got me. So this crime actually happened back in 29th of July, 2023. I didn't realize it was that long ago. But so it's been going on for a little while. It's been in the news pretty much quite a lot. since then. That's almost 2 years now. Obviously, it's in the news right now because the trial has been going on, and it's now at the point where Erin Patterson, who is the accused of murdering, or did she, the death, let's say, of four people. Was it three? No, 3 people, and attempted murder or accidental of 5. So she has very unusually, apparently, most accused never give evidence in their own trial, but she has decided to do that. That's been going on for around about 8 days. So she got pretty grilled. From what I'm looking at, it's just such a strange story because at first I'm thinking, wow, this woman is really dumb. Like, she's dumb. But now that I've looked into her a little bit more, she's not dumb at all. She's actually a very smart lady. So go figure.
Interesting. Okay, so before you move on, so I just wanted to clarify. So and as you're saying, this is an unusual move normally, but you're saying that she testified in her own defense, which is unusual and normally considered bad advice, especially if you have something to hide because of what you said that you're really going to get grilled. So did you say that she has been getting grilled for days? Like she was the only witness on the stand for several days?
Yeah, I'm not sure if she was actually on the stand for 8 days or whether the trial's been going for 8 days. Sorry, it's minor detail. I'm pretty sure it was her testimony for 8 days. That's what I read, but who knows?
Okay.
There's been a lot of things that I've read about this, and then finding that there's been along the way that information has changed a little bit.
Right.
And I actually emailed myself a video to have a look at last night, and when I went to look at it, it was gone. So all sorts of weird things are sort of happening
Many
here.
such cases.
Yeah. Now, okay, so I'll just quickly go over it. She invited her relatives, which are her estranged husband, parents, and the mother's sister, so the auntie and uncle as well of the estranged. She wanted to maintain their relationship with them after the separation with her husband. So that was sort of the point, but the real point was for her, she claims, Erin, to tell them about a cancer diagnosis that she'd had, and she was having some upcoming surgery. Now, even that in itself is complicated. Before I move on there, let me just say she did invite the husband, because this is what you asked me last time, and that's what I thought I screwed up. But as it turns out, I didn't screw it up because the husband was invited. She did want him there, but at the last minute, he decided not to go because he just thought it was all a bit too weird, because he couldn't figure out why she wanted to keep this relationship going with his parents. And he just went, it's too freaky. I don't want to go.
Yep. He got bad vibes.
Yeah, and he was doing something, I think, with the kids, because her children were not to be there either, which is another kind of,
red flag.
Strange. Yeah. So it was just the in-laws and the auntie and uncle that were there, and they were basically there because she'd talked to them before about health issues and things, and they'd given her a lot of sympathy and stuff. And I think it just seems like maybe she was reveling in that, because so she made up this cancer diagnosis, which she didn't even have cancer. As it turned out, the surgery that she wanted to get was like liposuction lap band surgery, but she was too embarrassed about admitting that. So, because she'd struggled all her life with weight and lower self-esteem, etc. So that's all a little bit messy to start with.
Very messy.
There's other little details as well of this is about foraging for wild mushrooms, and somehow mushrooms ending up in these death cap mushrooms, or Amanita phalloids, ending up in the beef Wellington meal that she was serving. Now, she says that she bought all separate eye fillet type steaks and did separate beef Wellington type things because she couldn't find one big long roll of beef. As it turned out, that was not completely true, because they were available in her area. So it's sort of like, well, why did she want all separate things? And it's like, if you wanted to accuse her, you'd say because she didn't want to muck up, she didn't want to have everything cooking together because she had to eat it as well.
Yeah, I don't want to poison me. I only want to poison you.
Exactly. I mean, she's not that dumb.
What is this, amateur hour?
Not only that, but she happened to the plate that she served herself was a different color to the other plates that she served to the other people. So, yeah, all these little things sort of start to add up.
Yeah. And if
Mm,
I may just quickly say, I love
please.
the story. I love the true crime. I love a good mystery.
Yeah.
But I feel like the cases that often go super viral or become super well known, and you're having this kind of prolific court session or whatever it is, trial, and gets a ton of attention, there's always like enough, and I guess maybe this is why, but there's enough to make you say, I don't know. But then there's all these other small little things that don't make any sense. So like to me, you have a different color plate. You lied about the availability of the slice of meat. You lied about your health condition in general, which even if all the other things wouldn't be as weird, but you kicked off the entire meeting with a lie about your health condition. And it's just not good. It's just not on the up and up to do that. It's not a good start.
Yeah, well, the cancer that she supposedly had was a lump on her arm, which apparently just went away. And so she'd already told them, "Oh, I think I've got cancer," and then the lump went away, and she never got a biopsy or anything on it as well. So, and then she just went, "I was too embarrassed to admit," because she got so much sympathy and everything from them. So that's the sort of story. I mean, sounds like she's smart, but she might have a little bit of a couple of screws loose there. But that's
Don't we all?
judgment. That's judgment trial by media, and I don't really want to fall into that because there's some other things too. Now, just digging into who these people were, Erin Patterson, when I thought she's a bit dumb, she wasn't, because she was a trained accountant. She was the editor of the little local newspaper that the in-laws used to be the editor of, and she took over from them when they stepped down, retired or whatever. Trained accountant for the Department of Defense. Okay. Her father, which they don't really name in the article where they name her mother, which I thought was a little bit odd. He was a government worker, but I found out his name because I dug. Eitan, very strange name, Eitan Scudder. Erin's mother, Dr. Heather Scudder, Monash University lecturer in literature. So not really saying anything, but interesting.
It is interesting. And I think that the big ones that I look out for, would be an intelligence connection, which she does have if it's Department of Defense. And then for somebody to be in the medical field at sort of a high level, or academia, or psychology falls under medical, but those are the big red flags that I would also be looking for.
Okay, my apologies. I should have said she was the mother was Dr. Heather Scudder, but she was doctor in literature.
You did say literature. Yeah.
Oh,
you
did I? Okay.
Yeah, you said it. So I just was saying, like, that is curious to me, and having the connection to academia. But the big ones I would be looking for are intelligence and psychology.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely. So she's just done some really dumb things, like she did get into foraging mushrooms, which eventually came out because when she was first asked about that, she said, no, I don't forage. And then it comes out that she was foraging for mushrooms since 2020, since COVID hit, and she started getting involved in that. So her search history showed up that she had been involved, had looked at a site called iNaturalist, which is basically a identification type site for flora and fauna in that area, particularly, I think, mushrooms. Haven't been there myself, but so she had all that, and she had looked up. There was an area that they had reported on iNaturalist whatever it is of death cat mushrooms in an area just near her, and then apparently her phone was pinged in that area as well. So this is also showing how all this sort of stuff can be found via technology, that I've noticed all these little links, like her phone was pinged. They found that she had disposed of a food dehydrator which she had actually used to do mushrooms and things in. She disposed of that the day after she got out of hospital after the meal because she did get a little bit sick, she said. She disposed of the dehydrator into the tip, and they found that had happened through CCTV. So there's technology as well again. And when her home was her house was searched, they had technology. What are they called? Technology sniffer dogs. So they've got these sniffer dogs that can sniff out technology, and I bet they all die of cancer. But,
oh my gosh, that's so true. So basically, they don't want you to have a hidden smartphone that they don't know about.
That's right.
They're going to sniff it out.
Yeah, and there was some weird stuff happening with the phones too, because there was a photo taken of the search, and there was a phone sitting there quite obviously, but it was a phone that never got turned up in the evidence. So that was a bit weird. And then the phone that she did surrender to the police, she did three, not one, 3 factory resets on it. One of them when it was in their hands, so at the police station, but she did it remotely, which was kind of weird because they took it away in a Faraday bag and all that sort of thing, so I don't know how that must have been. It was either sloppy police work or I don't know. Who knows? Which is not beyond the realms of possibility.
It's not, but man, you're bringing up so many good points, but just so many weird things that don't add up.
Yes. Now it takes around about, desk caps are very similar to edible straw mushrooms. Yeah, they do look kind of similar. Yeah. I was sort of saying last week they don't look similar, but they kind of do actually. They're a little bit of a yellower look, paler, but could easily be.
Right, and maybe easy to mistake if you are new, an amateur at that. And you were saying last time too that really you do need to be very careful. Like being an amateur forager, you need to have somebody that you can discuss these things because there is so many of them that do look similar, and it can be a deadly mistake.
100%. Yeah, there are many that look very similar, and one might be really good for you, and the next one might be a killer. So, not advised, really. So, what else have I got here?
Okay, and while you're looking, I kind of interrupted you, but or maybe you were finished with this point. So they felt the need to have these technology sniffer dogs, which I find very fascinating. And her phone had 3 factory resets, and one of them was done remotely in a Faraday bag.
Well, it was taken away in a Faraday bag, so I suppose it was taken out of the Faraday bag once they got it to the police station to, look at it or whatever. So, and apparently it must have been a timing thing. I don't really know there. There's a few little sort of funny details that are kind of, that's a bit weird.
Right. It would be hard to track that down, but I just find that very, very fascinating. And I wonder too if she was deleting, if you could try to do that from the cloud or something like that. So maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, you can. Yep.
Yeah.
You can do it remotely. Yep.
All right.
So, but there was a couple of phones involved. So there was phone A and phone B. Now, what she did too which was very strange, was she'd swapped SIM cards around. So she'd moved the phone A SIM card, which was never recovered. She put that into the phone B. The phone A, was never recovered. The SIM card from that went into phone B, and phone B was there was no data on it. So it was just an old Nokia that she'd put it into, and that's the one she surrendered to police. So that in itself is sort of like, well, she knew there was something on phone A, which was a Samsung Galaxy, that apparently got thrown into a skip bin or something, but never recovered, apparently. But there was a lot of conflicting information as well from the children and the husband. So basically, the meal was had. Everyone went home around about, it was a lunchtime, so they went home around about 3 p.m. And the people who started getting very sick and ended up dying, they didn't start sort of getting sick until around 11 p.m. Now, to prove that it was death cap mushroom toxin, apparently there has to be a urine and blood sample taken very soon after ingestion to actually prove it beyond a doubt. So I guess that's probably why there's a little bit of, questioning here. So these people got very sick, diarrhea, vomiting all through the night, what have you. They ended up dying. The other couple got very sick. One lady ended up dying, but before she did, she pointed out to her husband, which was the survivor, which was the father. She said, "Do you remember Erin's plate was a different colour to everybody else's?" So that was noticed. So that has come up as fairly, but also, apparently, Erin fed some leftovers of this meal to her children the next day who did not get sick. So that's a bit strange. So what is being said here now is that she actually cooked 2 different beef Wellington meals, had the poison one, obviously, and the other one, which she had pre-planned to feed the leftovers, in inverted commas, to the children as a cover sort of thing. Like saying, well, they didn't get sick. So what's the story?
Actually, it's quite smart.
She was not a stupid woman. No.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then there's the other side of me where I just go, wow, could it have been an accident? Is she being pinned here? Did someone put these mushrooms? Because what happened was she was buying some mushrooms from, she said, Woolworths, which is a supermarket chain here, and also an Asian supermarket. So she would buy mushrooms from these different places and then she'd sort of put them together in containers. And if she wasn't going to use them all at the time, she would dry them and then put them into containers. And she's saying, well, it's a possibility that maybe my collected mushrooms got mixed in with those ones. So that's sort of the covering of that. So it's possible. It's possible. Or did somebody put some death cap mushrooms into her mushroom stock? That's a possibility. So obviously that's why the trial's been going on so long, because there's all these possible things, even though it looks like something else.
Right. A lot of benefit of the doubt, or at least a possibility. And listen, we've seen enough murder mysteries to know that people get blamed for other people's crimes all the time. So it could be. It legitimately could be, which is why these things are often so puzzling. And then I think that, like you said, I mean, this is like guilty or conviction by media. But whenever you start to see lies about other things and like it just conveniently all happened to break your way, then it makes me very suspicious. But there's a lot of question, perhaps, for reasonable doubt here.
Yeah, and she's been extremely cooperative all along the way. She told the police when she was at the house. She gave them everything they asked for. She got the she'd thrown out some of the leftover food into a bin. She told them that. She got it out of the bin for them, gave them that. She's been extreme. Like, I've been listening to the transcript, which has been repeated by actors, voice actors, but all the answers have been like, she just doesn't sound like she's really hiding anything. Like, she's been extremely, well, as I said, cooperative, bringing information and fairly legitimate answers to all the questions, like, oh, yeah, okay, that's possible. Yeah, okay, maybe. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see where it all ends up. And I don't know. I just feel like there's something more to all this, but I'm just missing it. Interesting stuff. Like, for instance, the next day after she'd gotten out of hospital after the meal where she was a little bit sick, she drove her son for, I don't know, an hour or two, something, to a flying lesson. And that was one of the things that was a discrepancy of the information, that the son, said, because Erin was saying that on the way she had diarrhea and she stopped and had to go, sort of to the side of the highway or the road, whatever, to take a liquid dump. And sorry, people. And gotten back in the car and then continued on. And the son had he said, no, I don't remember Mum doing that. And I'm thinking, yeah, okay, but probably sitting there with his phone, probably didn't even notice,
Right,
I mean, there's
tablet, headphones, who knows?
Yeah, exactly, memory sort of like irrelevant, completely out of the head sort of thing. I don't know. There's a lot going on here, so it'll be interesting to see the outcome. I feel sorry for her in one way, because it's like maybe she is being pinned here, but and the other way, it's like maybe she's really, really smart and really bold and just got a sickness that she doesn't realize. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, I think it's very possible. We just don't know.
We'll know the outcome in a couple of days, I think.
Yeah. I think that we often, we want to have a tendency to think that most people are like us, but we do have to understand that, yeah, there's some people out there that are diabolical. Now, the other thing that I would be curious about is if she had any financial incentive whatsoever to kill these people. It doesn't seem like it.
That's a great question, actually, and I'll tell you the answer. No, I don't think so, because when her parents passed away 4 years prior to the crime, so that 2019, she and her sister, her one sister, inherited quite a large amount of, like, a property which was worth quite a lot of money, and also her father had done some quite good business, and they inherited a fair amount of money. She was living a very comfortable, quite well-financed life already. So, and she had gone through the separation with the husband. Now, okay, one could say, well, the husband's, he'll get 50% of what she's got, really, in reality, if that's what he does. He's a very highly religious man. He was a pastor. This is the husband, Simon Patterson, who didn't go to the meal. He was a pastor, very highly religious. Erin herself was an atheist, but I think she converted in the end. Now that doesn't say anything much, but I'm just saying it's not like the husband, is this sort of, well, shouldn't really judge based on people's religion, but you know what I'm saying? It's sort of like there's that sort of.
Right. It's at least something to add to the consideration of what is happening here. So we have a couple of comments from Dream Real about the amatoxins and psilocybin. If you want to read that one, Stella, and give your thoughts on that.
Oh, you give me the tough ones. Okay. There's
well, I certainly don't know the difference.
There's a connection between amatoxins and psilocybin. Psilocybin shows up as a false positive when detecting amatoxins. Okay. All right. There you go. Since there is a strong push to regulate psilocybin for medical use, this could be a way of instituting that regulation so only synthetic forms are legal. Yeah, very good point. Excellent. Thanks for that comment. True enough.
Yeah, I think that certainly those things need to at least be in our possibility of what is at play here. And I did want to also say that over in Rumble, we have a couple of people that have joined us. We have Birdhouse Blues, JB Morrison, and Twilight Shadow. So thank you all, and thank you Dream Real for joining us. But JB Morrison said that he loved beef Wellington, so maybe he'll beware next time he's enjoying some nice beef Wellington.
Yeah, I didn't actually look up the recipe of beef Wellington, and I can't say I've made one myself. I'm just wondering, because I thought that it was more of like a whole mushroom type meal, whereas what she has done, Erin, has used like a mushroom paste. So it's been obviously made from like powdered, dried, dehydrated type mushrooms, and she put that on top of the beef Wellington and the pastry. So I don't know. It sounds sort of like a very standard meal. And she's done it her own way with all the separate bits, and it's sort of, it doesn't look good for her, put it that way.
It doesn't. It really doesn't. So Dream Real here had also.
Okay, that's a good point. Yeah. Sorry, you go ahead.
No, if you want to read that for us.
Okay, so he's saying the husband would not be entitled to the inheritance if it was received after their separation. Yes, that is very true. I think it was received before the separation, so I think he would be entitled. It was 4 years before, and I think they separated after. Yes. So he probably would be entitled.
So in a couple of things. So this case in and of itself is very interesting from just a mystery, because there's a lot of things here that you have uncovered, these little points that you found that just it just really feels like, could she be innocent? It really feels that way,
50-50. Yep.
Yeah. And then you have what Dream Real is saying, as far as what could be the larger play here, which I think is a very valid question. And then I know I mentioned this before, but I have really been wondering about how organic is it here in the States when we have these major cases that are just so popular, they're garnering so much attention. Why?
Yeah, exactly.
And in your case, I think that it could be a good point that maybe there is some sort of psilocybin or mushroom regulation, or that it's playing into a narrative in that regard. I think that makes sense. But here, there's 3 that come to mind that I don't really understand. So 2 of them are celebrity based. So one is the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. And I think the only thing I got out of that was just, I don't know, could it possibly have been to, continue to take down the Me Too movement? Was it just distraction? Maybe. Was it information dissemination following? Maybe. Because it was sort of one of the first of its kind where people were making, like, content creators were becoming famous simply for their coverage of the case. So, like, let's say I'm an attorney and then I'm watching and paying attention to everything that's happening with this Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, and then I'm coming and making content to you on what I think about it and what happened, the play by play, right? So I think it could have been that, but I really didn't necessarily understand why is this theater happening? I don't know. Then there's currently a big case from an actress, Blake Lively, who's married to Ryan Reynolds, who was the Deadpool actor, and he's been in a ton of other things, versus one of her co-stars. Once again, you have allegations of sexual harassment. Her case looks very bad. It involves Taylor Swift as her best friend and as having information, and people being depositioned or being required to show up at the deposition, and all of these, treachery and things like that. So again, I understand from a celebrity perspective, but none of this seems like well advised. And these people have teams. They're literally like hundreds of millionaires. 450 million, I think, is supposedly the net worth of Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds or something like that. So I'm like, surely you have people that are advising you that this case doesn't make sense. So what is the play here? And then the other one that I wanted to tell you about, and I had mentioned it before, but it's this woman, and her name is Karen Reed. Supposedly, so it has been very divisive. So a lot of people are saying free Karen Reed, justice for John O'Keefe, who was the man that was murdered, which is Karen's boyfriend at the time. And then you have these whole other people that are supporting whatever, the Commonwealth, the state of Massachusetts. And so they had one trial, and she was, I think it was a hung jury or something, and they decided to retry it. And so there was a 7-part HBO documentary that's been done on it. There's all kinds of content creation around it. There appears to be all kinds of corruption associated with the local cops, a guy who was involved in this milieu who was an ATF agent, the court system. Even there's like a lot of heat that's on the judge there. All of this to say, like, I know that some of these are organic, but it's just very difficult to try to figure out what is the point if they're being artificially, brought into view for us, and what is the fallout for that? Like, what would be the point in this case, unless it's to undermine trust in the justice system, which seems fair, but
Yeah, look, they're all steps in manufacturing, social engineering sort of thing, that it's, as we always say, and as many people say, always multifaceted. It's never just one thing. I mean, they prove to be a fantastic distraction. So, everybody's looking at them while other things are going on under the table, what have you. Something that's just occurred to me as well is, these are propaganda. We're in propaganda war. This is warfare that we're in. A lot of people don't seem to realize that, but it is. It's a war of the mind, control mind. They're building industries. They're creating income, or they're creating an industry by a lot of these things, because, as you just pointed out, there's lots of, it's very parasitic, isn't it? These things happen, and then, as you've pointed out, you get the commentators talking about them, and of course then they get, well known, and they obviously get some money from it and all that sort of thing, just from being a parasite, a tick on the back of these things. So they're building an industry, they're creating distractions, they're manufacturing social engineering. So it's so useful in this war of propaganda. I mean, we're all thinking, oh, war's just over there with bullets and tanks and stuff. No, it's not. It's right in front of us. It's in our faces. It's in our ears. It's in our eyes. It's freaking well everywhere. So we've got to be careful about our orifices, what we let in. Okay.
Yeah, watch out what you let in between your ears, especially.
Yep, definitely. So interesting. I'll let you know what the outcome is with Erin
Please
Patterson and
do.
what happens with that.
Yeah, I'll
Be
look
keeping an
forward
eye
to
on.
your update on that. And I just, I would subscribe to your channel as a content creator based on true crime, Stella. You did a great
Would
job and it
you?
was very interesting.
I'm happy that I would have an audience. That would be great.
You would have at least one audience, but I think you would have at least two audiences.
There could be audience eye. Yes, audience eye. All right. Now, I believe that there is something else going on that you is spreading rumors, or what's happening? Do tell me.
Well, maybe so. So,
Something in the air.
it's the gift. Honestly, it's like a delicious beef Wellington with a nice poisonous mushroom paste. It's the gift that keeps on giving, but it's not food. It is a dangerous new NIMBUS COVID virus strain. And
Dun,
it's been
dun,
detected
dun.
in 13 states, and doctors warn of unique symptom. And I know you're on the edge of your seat
Oh,
waiting
yes,
for this
please.
unique symptom. Okay.
What is it? What is it?
I knew I was going to get you with this one. It is. Well, actually, before I get to that, let me. Oh, here we go. I found it. Okay. Give me that drum roll again.
Ding.
Okay. Recently, many people infected with COVID have been reporting a symptom dubbed razor blade throat.
Not the razor blade throat. I think Joe
Sharp
Cocker had
pain
that.
that feels more severe than with previous strains. So you mean a really sore throat, like what sometimes happens when you get sick?
Yeah, like a cold.
Like with a cold, I mean, I got basically the only symptom I had, this was before the holidays this year, and I had razor blade throat, and I believe it or not, I survived that. I did come out on the other end.
Oh, okay, good. And you're still with us?
I'm still with you.
Unless you've been
Yes.
cloned.
Some debate that, but
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's me.
Yeah, don't
Now,
swallow razor blades either, people. It's
don't do it.
no.
Now, sometimes you're gonna happen that's gonna be an honest mistake from time to time when you're eating Halloween candy. We all know the dangers of that.
This is true.
Or maybe a Halloween apple.
To be
But the other
expected.
thing yes. The other thing that I wanted to point out, because do you remember when we had the name of I forget which strain was the last time we were talking about this, but it was like a
Oh, there's been
phallus
so
strain.
many. The
Do you
what? The
remember there
Valor?
was like a phallus or like the penis strain or something like that?
Oh, that's right. Yes, yes. That was a Spanish word for penis.
Okay. So this time, I went ahead and looked up Nimbus just to see what it said. Okay. Which I thought was
Good.
maybe a little bit interesting. So the first, it has 3 blips. So the first blip says a cloudy radiance said to surround a classical deity when on earth. 2,
Ooh.
a radiant light that appears usually in the form of a circle or halo above or over the head in the representation of a god, demigod, saint, or sacred person, such as a king or an emperor. And 3, a splendid atmosphere or aura as of glamour that surrounds a person or thing. So I thought this was really kind of interesting
Wow, very interesting.
because especially bullet point 2, where it's a circle or a halo about the head to
Yes.
represent god, demigod, saint, or sacred person, such as a king, because obviously we have the no king protests that are happening all over the United States right now. We have had many accusations of people, insinuating that or with these associations with like Trump and his family, and even looking back at the inauguration of these like Roman type connections, the colors, the Roman salute, there's even memes
Yes.
discussing this sort of rivalry between Baron Trump and Elon Musk from the like
Yeah, that's right.
Cassius, Mark Antony type connections. So I just thought
Uh-huh.
that was, I don't know, interesting.
All roads lead to Rome. And yes, it is very interesting. also, the thoughts that I had through that is when you're talking about like basically the sort of the halo head. Well, I mean, one thing is that's a corona. That is a corona. So that kind of ties in. Also, probably, I don't know how many people sort of know much about this, but often with presidents, it's happened with Trump, it's happened with Obama, and I'm sure that if I looked at a whole bunch of the other past ones, they position them in such a way, or maybe it's Photoshop, whatever, but they position them usually in such a way that if there's something behind them, like it might be a circular thing or something, that's always just around their head, so it looks like a halo, and it gives them that sort of godlike, otherworldly appearance. It's just all psychological. It's all propaganda.
You are so right about that. And I have to interject here because back when Biden was originally the president, way back in 2020, there were images like that of him.
Yeah.
And some people were even talking about the symbolism. Like, are they trying to implant this saint-like
100%.
Thing in our mind? And yes, so it was very interesting that you brought that up because they 100% do that. And it has even been, discussed just in basic like online chitter chatter.
Yeah, that's still just part of the illusionary propaganda that they bring, and people don't understand that they're seeing it. They just don't notice it, but their subconscious notices it. So it just immediately puts somebody onto a higher, a pedestal, so to speak, higher rank of authority.
Yes,
Yeah, very
100%. And
interesting.
we know that when you've been primed your entire life for many different reasons, essentially for mind control, and even though it doesn't work on a portion of the population, it does work on most people. So the signs and symbols do matter. We know that. And
also the 13
important.
states was also interesting as well, because there's many, many logos and representative type things. In fact, I'm not even sure if the United Nations with 13 stars. And I mean, we've got the 13 is very prominent with the disciples of Jesus and, all that
13
sort of stuff.
colonies of the United States. That was the original 13 colonies.
Right.
And
There you go.
yes. So let me just give you another little blip here. So it says that the CDC has not yet published official tracking data on the new variant. I mean, I'm anxious for when they do.
Oh,
However,
yes.
the global initiative on sharing all influenza data, so that is GISAID, that's a real thing, reported as of June 11th, NIMBUS has been found in 13 states, including California, New York, New Jersey, and Hawaii. The COVID-19 virus mutates constantly, and lab tests have shown new changes to the NIMBUS strain's spike protein, which may make it more infectious than currently circulating strains and potentially cause more severe illness. So I find that very interesting. Even back in the early days, the good old days of the original COVID strain, there was discussion on if it is even what they say that it is, if it's a virus, then viruses do not evolve to become more lethal. Maybe they change, but they evolve to become more effective. So I just I feel like this is interesting timing. Obviously, the NIMBUS Association and all the things that we just said, but I feel like we have so many things going on right now with this, essentially the poly crisis, right? We've got the war in the Middle East, we've got unrest at home, et cetera, same old, another summer of love, a summer of mostly peaceful protests that are not at all manufactured. And then today on the Knights of the Storm show, I do not remember. Oh, here it is. Karen brought up something that I think you would be really interested in too. So it was almost like she was referring to as like another event 201, but it's called the National Blueprint for Biodefense. And so it was another kind of like they have this over 170-page document, sort of like the SPARS, sort of like Event 201, with all these people kind of working together. And a lot of the points reminded me of all the things from the exercise of Event 201, but of how they would want to get onto the data sharing, like all the things that they really would have loved to have done in COVID or was on the table, but they were like information finding, we talked about the trial balloon, right? So they did tons of trial balloons. It was like the next level of that, of, okay, this is what we learned, and now we want to try to begin implementing like the next layer of surveillance, essentially, on this, and test it, all of that kind of stuff. So again, it's called the National Blueprint for Biodefense. And I thought that was interesting as well, that kind of just happened in the last couple of months, although that was not the virus. It wasn't COVID that they were talking about, but something else that comes from bats, believe it or not. But I just thought it's just interesting.
Yeah, I mean, they're always putting out the social thermometer thing, just testing here and there, aren't they? It's obvious that so many of these things are experiments, social experiments. Let's see how this reacts. Let's see how that reacts. They're doing different experiments in different demographics of people. They know exactly where to do what, and how long to do it for, and when to pull back. And it's all so engineered. And people still think that they've got a say in things. You don't. You just don't. I mean, if everybody got together and, if all, 8 billion of us minus the elites, 1% or whomever, and their cronies, we could make a difference, but that's not going to happen, is it? So, people don't want to go to protests anymore either, which is the whole point of having those really
100%.
really upsetting, chaotic, violent protests, is to make sure that good people stay home. It's all engineered.
Because either that it's infiltrated by crisis actors and
Agent provocateurs.
And the feds, agent provocateurs, 100%. So we saw what happened at January 6th. We saw what happened at a lot of these other protests, and you just don't know necessarily where something's going to land, because obviously January 6th was nothing like. Well, the other thing is that this is
Ashley
what we
Babbitt
were
did not die.
Right. Yeah.
Not
And
there
what we were
anyway.
shown is one thing, like repeatedly over and over. And then some people on, in like the truth community, obviously we're not buying it, which is very fair. But we also were only shown certain things from other protests. So we know that there's a heavy manipulation of what we are actually allowed to see. You hear all these stories about small businesses burning down and elderly people being attacked and things like that. And did it happen? Probably, but we weren't there. So I think that there's just so much muddying of what actually happened as well. And then there was also the way that they treated different people. And we saw what happened to people that were there for January 6th, and that they were basically stripped of their constitutional rights, and they were held oftentimes in solitary confinement for a very long time. So they were very abused, and they really, the boot really stepped on them. And then we saw people, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It sure did. Yeah, I was just agreeing.
Oh, yeah. And then we saw people on the other side that were being very violent. They're throwing Molotov cocktails and things like that, and nothing happened to them. And obviously we know that narrative is deliberate. It is done to try to incite people, to demoralize people, to cause more division amongst people. But it's just very frustrating that act of resistance has been completely co-opted and muddied and just reduced.
Yeah, and everybody always looks at, oh, that's George Soros, financing that. And sure, of course it is, but it's not just him. He's just the cane toad in the camera sort of thing, the puppetition, the puppet. The elite puppet. In fact,
I love that.
Yeah, I have to give that to Ivor. What's his name? That Irish guy, Ivor Cummings, I think his name. Yeah. I got that from him. Shout out, Ivor. Good mate, you listening? Yeah. So Soros, yeah, he always cops it. It's sort of like Bill Gates, he's the face, and everybody goes, it's Bill Gates, Yeah, okay, yeah, it is to a point, but Bill's just he's a puppet as well. I mean, he's just the face that the pie happens to land in. My favorite part of the internet.
100%.
The pie in Bill Gates's face, and then the second one. Anyway, yes, very interesting. All socially engineered. We've just got to be more aware. I mean, that's what the whole point of these sort of shows are, is just to point out the silliness of it all and the obvious engineering. But,
For sure.
Still, some people do not see it.
And
the programming is very deep, isn't it? I mean, the programming is so deep. Even, people who are close to me that I won't name, so, oh, yeah, no, they know all about it and everything, but they're still listening to the news and they're still, listening to what the local radio tells them.
Yeah, and I think the whole concept of cognitive dissonance is really true. Like it actually is painful. So there must be something about people that really have the mental flexibility to accept when things like never meet your heroes, right? Like I idolize this person, I I really love their work or whatever. Well, then I have been shown new information and they're a horrible person or they weren't who I thought they were. Okay, can we roll with that, right? Some people can and some people cannot. And it's that way with politicians, it's that way with paradigms, with ideas, with what you thought of history, things like that. And I think that some people just they can't let it go for whatever reason.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. So, but here we are. It's going to be so interesting what the next few years are going to hold. It's certainly sort of it's ramping up a little bit. I don't think that's just in our heads. Well, I mean, if you turn all this stuff off and just go out in the garden, a lot of it doesn't exist, which is, a fairly good thing to do every now and then. But we look into all this stuff, so you don't have to. But, well, I think that's probably just about it for today. Do you think, Miss Ashley?
Yeah. I think that we have had some very fun conversation, covered some interesting stuff. And that's one of the things I really love about Not Your Mom's News. We try to bring stuff that's a little bit not necessarily being talked about in the greater podcasting space.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
And so I really like that. And because obviously this stuff is worth talking about, and we've spent plenty of time talking about the main, the big things that are out there. However, I like bringing up these little things and having these conversations and pondering where is this going to lead and what is actually going to transpire here, and we're going to keep an eye on it. So anyway,
that's the point of it. Yeah, but very excited about that the aircraft story that you brought. I'll be looking into that very much so, and I'm sure Jim Lee will be excited to hear that one. If he's probably all over it. But there's climateviewer.com if you want to learn about stuff that's beyond conspiracy realm, because it actually has facts. Remember them? Climateviewer.com is the place to go, darling. If you want some facts about the sky and stuff.
Yeah, and please do let me know about, if he has thoughts on the whole Jet Zero thing, because I'm very fascinated by that. And then real quick before we wrap up, I just want to do a quick shout out to our chat. So thank you so much for Dream Real. He's a real one and he shows up almost every episode, and we appreciate you, Dream Real.
I think he's a bit of a dream too.
He's a bit of a dream. Love that. And I am to understand he's also a very good researcher.
He is. Smart cookie.
Then in our Rumble chat, we had Birdhouse Blues. We have JB Morrison 2112. That is our fan of Beef Wellington over there. We had Karen Carpenter also. And I think that's...
Are we really happy with this lonely game we play? I bet she gets that all the time.
JB Morrison? Or
Karen
Carpenter, yes. But is he a dreamer? She says. I think he might be a bit of a dreamer.
I think he's a dreamer.
Yeah, I think so. But anyway, so thank you. Dream real, for sure.
Yeah.
But thank you all for joining us live. We really appreciate you spending your time with us. And
we do. We absolutely do.
Yeah, for your lovely comments and your questions and all these things. I absolutely am so grateful. So thank you. And thank you, Stella. You are a lovely host. I absolutely loved your story today, and I had an amazing time chatting with you.
Always. It's always fun to chat with you. And thank you for pushing the buttons and everything. And love your guts, all you people that have put your time aside to join us. We absolutely adore you. Now, young lady, where can we be found, apart from somewhere in the corner with crayons?
Aside from in the corner with our crayons, I'm glad you asked. We can be found at the unionoftheunknowns.com. That is our Linktree page with all the myriad ways to get in touch with us, from joining our Discord to our Gmail account to our voicemail account to our Twitter handle. And we would love to have you reach out to us, and we would appreciate it. Back to you, Stella.
Yes, so go and pick some links off our Linktree. We grow it and we water it and we nurture it, and there you go. All right. Well, thank you for being here, everybody. And we look forward to our next episode, where we'll bring more Not Your Mama's news to your eyes and your ears, but not to your mama. Love you guts, everybody. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Not Your Mama's News has been a production of the Union of the Unknowns podcast. New episodes are available weekly on all your favorite podcasting networks.